Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of a casual NBA podcast. So, thank you all so much for joining us today, and I hope you all are ready for some casual basketball discussion. So, since this is episode one of the pod, it might be a little awkward to start as we got to get through some introductions, and also it might be a little clunky because none of us have ever done this before, but don't worry because it's going to be a good time. So all of our names will be on screen if you're watching this on YouTube, but if not, we'll go ahead and introduce ourselves now. So I'm Peyton, and I'm joined by my three good friends who can introduce themselves now.
My name's Jackson.
My name is Cody.
And I'm Tucker.
All right, round of applause for the boys.
Yeah.
Anyway, so to help us get to know, or to help you all get to know us, we're going to go ahead and do some little icebreakers. So each of us are going to go around and tell you how we got into basketball and our top three favorite players right now. So Tucker, you want to go ahead and start us out with that?
Yeah, to start it out, I grew up playing basketball, started in elementary school. So I've kind of, favorite sport, loved it my whole life. Played in high school and then met these guys in high school, and we continued it in college by playing pickup and just getting really into the NBA. Cody, you are next.
All right. Yeah, I am not a basketball player. I'm a basketball watcher. Um, but I got into NBA basketball in high school, back freshman year of high school. I learned that we got Pacers games on the local television channels, and I was like, "Hey, I live in Indiana. The Pacers are from Indiana. It's kind of cool." So I just started watching them, and I've just been watching NBA ball ever since. Jackson, what about you?
So I was more of a casual fan growing up. My dad watched during Larry Bird and Magic. I knew all about that, watched documentaries with him. I liked watching March Madness, so I kind of liked the sport, but I didn't watch the NBA until I was a little older. But I kept up with the sport. Like I watched Kobe's last game and I watched Kevin Durant go to the Warriors, stuff like that, more casual. And then I went to my first Pacers game with Cody in 2019, and I just really fell in love with watching it live and got into the sport and started watching every team. And it just kind of went on from there. And to Peyton.
So I have been like super indifferent to basketball almost my entire life. As a kid, I barely watched any basketball. My dad was a big fan of the Louisville Cardinals. So I think it was 2013 when they won the national title. I was kind of locked in for that. But like after that, could not have cared less about basketball. Was not a sporty kid growing up. And once I went to college with all these dudes, we started watching the Purdue team. So I got kind of into them. And spoilers, but a lot of us are Pacers fans. And so
Boo.
Cody and Jackson would always have Pacers games on. And that was back in the era where they had Sabonis. And since Sabonis is kind of a grit and grind player, he reminded me of the way Purdue played. So I was like, hey, I like this Sabonis guy. I like this Pacers brand of basketball, which looking back on is hilarious because it was super boring and they were terrible. But yeah, that kind of pulled me in and been a Pacers fan and NBA fan ever since.
Big fan of that redacted championship, are you?
Yeah, freaking Rick Pitino. Anyways, now we're gonna go through and give you our top three favorite players. So this time, I guess I can go first. So I guess I'll start at number three, and it is Obi freaking Toppin, newly branded NBA Pacer. He is going to be most improved player this year,
Yes, sir.
and I believe in him. Very exciting player and future GOAT. Anyways, my number two is Tyrese Halliburton, Pacers point guard. I'm taking some homer picks here, but watch a lot of Pacers games when you're a Pacer fan, so start to grow attached to the players. And in my defense, Obi wasn't always a Pacer. But number one's Nikola Jokic. He is an inspiration to all fat white boys around the globe, and he's my goat. So
All right.
Jackson, you can go next.
So I have some homer picks also. I didn't really make an order. I just had three that I like. I like Tyrese Halliburton. He's really turned around the whole franchise. One of the best. Honestly, the new point guard. It's just so fun to watch him like destroy defense and just amazing passer. And then I'd say superstar player. I like Giannis Antetokounmpo. Just watching that finals run and just turning my page on him because I wasn't huge on him when I first started watching, but he's just a really freaking good player. And then my favorite player is Miles Turner, which is kind of a meme player, but I just like watching him. And he had 8 blocks the first game I watched him in, and it was just really cool to see someone play defense like that. And then Dakota.
Alright, so my three favorite players, number one is Victor Oladipo. I know now he's Miami Heat and doesn't have
Okay,
two
see.
legs to stand on anymore. But that first year I started watching Pacers ball, that was the year that he was all NBA and he was really special that year, and without him I don't think I would have really got into basketball the way I did. And then my second favorite player is TJ McConnell, another white boy who just is scrapping every play, gets all those inbound steals, and he's just such a fun player to watch, brings so much energy to the team. And then of course, we all have our superstar favorites. So mine's Steph Curry, just the way he shoots, and I mean, he's Steph Curry. What else do I need to say? So on to Tucker.
So my list is probably going to be changing a lot over the next year due to situations with the Portland Trailblazers. First up, I've got at 3 is Shaden Sharp, just because he's very fun to watch. Kind of a human highlight reel. And then it's kind of similar to Peyton here with the style of play, but Jokic, because I mean he's just too fun to watch. He's plays basketball the right way, And finally, this is Dame. I grew up watching him, so I always think he'll stay in the top 3. I know things are a little crazy right now with the whole trade, but he's always just fun to watch. Watching him drop 70 this past season was crazy.
By the way, in case you all couldn't guess, me, Cody, and Jackson, we are all Indiana Pacers fans, and Tucker is a Portland Trailblazers fan. So
Ooh.
we have an odd cast here.
Yeah, we like small markets. Kind of the
All
opposite
right.
of every other podcast, to be fair.
No Knicks, Bulls, or Lakers fans here.
Hallelujah.
I
All
don't
right, boys.
dislike them though.
You ready to get into the meat and potatoes of this episode?
Let's do it.
Yes, sir.
All right. So we have all compiled our list of what we think the top 10 NBA players are. And we're going to go through. We're going to start at 10. We're all going to give our picks for number 10. We're going to discuss, and then we're going to go on, and we're just going to look at our list and see what we got. So, anyone want to go first?
I can go first.
My man.
So, as I'm sure we'll say this a million times, but this is a very hard thing to do.
Yeah, it really is.
There are a lot of really, really good NBA players in the league, and there were a lot of really good performances this past season. And there's so many different criteria you can use. So my number 10 player is Kevin Durant. And honestly, I really wish I could have Kevin Durant way, way higher. My thing with him is he didn't play a lot of games. He got traded to the Suns, was hurt, didn't play a lot. He kind of was a little shaky in the playoffs. So that's the only reason I have him at 10. But I honestly think that he could easily be a top 5 player again this season. So now let's go to Tucker.
Let's talk about your
Alright.
number 10
Oh.
first. I'm a little
okay.
curious.
Okay, yeah, if
So-
anybody has any questions.
I really he didn't play enough games for me, so he didn't make my top 10 list.
And that's fair. I can understand that.
I can see that.
He was the first one out though. I had him in
Right.
my top 15. It's just
Yeah, because he did only play 47 games, but he was on the All-Star team and played really well basically until he got hurt. And like I said, I can understand that 40, and that's, like I said, the reason he's 10th for me. If he had played more games, he'd be higher for me. So that's a fair thing to say.
He's the first person I took out. I had him at number 10 also. It's just tough whenever they hurt and they don't play the whole year. I
Yeah,
also
it
don't
is.
I don't remember him making the All-Star team, but I might
Yeah,
just
he
be
did
crazy.
because he
I
played
think he was the
because
captain.
he was the captain and
I thought
Kyle.
Giannis was the
Is
captain.
that like 3 years now or something?
I'm
That-
pretty sure
yeah.
Giannis was the captain.
I think he was the step-in captain.
Okay, if he was
I could be
hurt
wrong,
then.
but
that captain. Mhm.
he's the captain that stepped up.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fair. I just don't remember him like playing.
Yeah, he didn't play in the All-Star game because he got hurt like a week before the All-Star break. So,
I'm just
all
gonna
right.
say I didn't let his games played play that much of a factor in mine.
Mm.
So spoilers for my list, but he is not here. He is not on it, and he is also a lot higher than.
Yeah. And like I said, if he'd have played more games, he would be higher on mine. So
His efficiency dropped too in the playoffs, which I took into account.
yeah, he
It
did
dropped
have a
from
career.
freaking 60, 50, 100.
Yeah, he did have a career high in shooting for the regular season though. So
Yeah, when he played, he cooked.
That's
all right.
fair.
So Tucker, what about you?
So mine's gonna be similar to Cody's, where injuries play a part, but like I probably would have had him a spot or two higher, but I have Anthony Davis.
Okay.
I looked at his defensive value. He had 12 and a half rebounds per game.
Career high.
And I combined for all my players their steals and blocks to like make it just one stat, and he had the highest at 3.1. So along with 26 points per game, I just felt like he deserved to be a top 10 player. But I could see the argument, he didn't play a ton in the regular season.
Yeah, I had him in my top 15. I will say that. He is not in my top 10, but it was in my honorable mention category
He's in
because
my
he
honorable
did
mention.
have a really solid, really good, especially defensive season this year. Even had a
Mhm.
career high in shooting percentages, except from three. So, like, he was very good this year when he did play.
Mm-hmm.
He was so close to making my top 10. I kept going back and forth between him and the person who I did end up putting at 10, but he is my first or second man out. But
Yeah.
to me, it's really just the offensive consistency with him just isn't always there. Like he would have games, like especially in the playoffs against the Warriors and the Nuggets, where one game he'd have like 35 points, and the next game he'd have like 6.
Yeah.
That's how I felt also.
This is
But
like
obviously, the
slightly,
defensive consistency is always there.
it's like slightly off topic with him, but does anyone else feel like he just doesn't shoot as well as he used to?
Yeah, because he's only shooting 26% from three on one attempt a game. So like he's not shooting very many and he's not shooting well on the ones he does. He's shooting
Mhm.
well everywhere else from the field except for long, mid-range, and then three.
I feel
So
like it's his tendonitis though. I feel like it just messes with your jump shot
Tendinitis.
because he has it in his leg. That's where the injury
Mm.
started, and he just stopped shooting. And also could be a confidence thing. But
Well, do you guys remember that report before this last season where they said he hadn't touched a basketball in like 6
there's
months?
that also.
Yeah.
Because that probably
Yeah.
don't help.
There's a
Yeah,
lot of
his-
things.
Yeah, his work ethic is a little questionable. I based off the numbers, I put him there.
Mm-hmm.
He's in my honorable mentions, so I can't
Same
really
here.
argue with you. 6 through 15 to me are just very hard to
Yeah.
really judge.
All right, Jackson, you want to hit us with the next one?
Okay, so I had Luka Doncic at number 10, which is very low.
Wow.
I didn't think he'd be that low,
Ooh.
but I just kind of took winning into account and making the playoffs, and I just don't like how he ended the season. I have his stats. I know he averaged 32, and I had a few people that averaged over 30 that I put above him. It's just, I feel like they had a more well-rounded season. But like, I know it's gonna sound crazy that he's this low.
yeah,
So
that is a very controversial decision.
I don't know about
Um,
that.
Yeah.
you can flame me.
I just don't think we can really blame Luca for his team success when he has a Tim Hardaway Jr. starting on his basketball team.
I mean, fair enough.
And I mean, he averaged what? I know he's above.
32,
He averaged
8, and
32
8.
points, almost 9 rebounds, 8 assists. Like you can't really have a more well-rounded
Yeah,
game than
career
that.
high in effective field goal percentage and regular field goal percentage. He's shooting 50% from the field on 22 attempts this past season.
Plus he plays a lot too. Doesn't really miss
66
games.
games.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's heavily weighting team success there. Um, yeah, that is probably going to be the most controversial thing here today. I would think.
I'm just curious to see who you have above him. I think that's going to be fun to look at.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to look at.
All right. So I guess I'll go ahead with my number 10. And for my 10, I have Jimmy Butler. So
Mhm.
obviously
Okay.
not the sexiest basketball player, unless he has his dreads, obviously. But the
Ugh.
stats aren't going to jump off the page. But I mean, he's been to 2 finals in what, the last 3, 4 seasons. And he's a winning player. And you can't really dock a player who just took an 8 seed to the finals. And I mean, you can't look at that player and not call him a top 10 player.
Yeah, I
Like
mean,
obviously his teammates, they stepped up. I think it was Caleb Martin, like probably should have won Eastern Conference Finals MVP,
right.
but you can't look at that team and say that Jimmy Butler's not the reason that they went to the finals.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I had him in my honorable mentions. I didn't have him
So
in
did
top
I.
10. I just thought there were too many players who are I, like you said, Jimmy Butler is one of those very difficult players
Hmm.
who like during the regular season, he's good, but like he's also kind of almost not coasting, but similar to that, you know?
Yeah.
And then he just turns it on in the playoffs and he's really, really good. But like there's so many good players in the NBA that I just left him off my top 10. Like I said, he's an honorable mention, but I could definitely understand putting him there at 10.
And
He's in
like I
my
said,
honorable
I went
mentions
back and
also.
forth with him and a bunch of other players, but really I gave him the number 10 spot just kind of as a award for him making the finals. The
It's
Peyton
fair.
stamp of approval, which
Yeah,
I'm sure he appreciates.
Yeah, that is
he'll treasure it.
fair.
Mm.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess that's it for number 10. Let's move on to 9. So my number 9 player, and this is a player I had a very hard time ranking. I could not decide where to put him, and that's Shea Gilgeous-Alexander
Mm.
Ooh.
because he averaged over 30 points per game, was in the MVP conversations, had a career year across the board. But then, also whenever you consider in team success to a degree and, the playoffs and all that, he's, it's hard to talk about because then also he's somewhat of a one-dimensional player in terms of he scores on isolation. He's basically like 2018 James Harden reincarnated without the shooting. He's just getting into the lane for little floaters and teardrops and stuff. So like I wanted to have him actually higher because of how many games he played and his scoring, but I settled on him at 9.
I can agree with that. I didn't really consider him too much. He was kind of competing for my it end of my honorable mentions. I probably should have had him higher. I just think I took into account the team success too much probably there with
Yeah,
that.
and that's what, like I said, he was a very I debated about him for a very long time.
Hmm. Because
I
also
definitely
with
think
Shea, he's playing with a bunch of 18-year-olds
Right.
mhm.
and like he doesn't have a center. So it's crazy that he was able to do this on that team.
Yeah, I think this year is going to be a big year for him getting Chet and all that. He
Hmm.
he could have, top 3 finish in MVP if he keeps it up.
All right. Well then let's move on to Tucker then, I guess.
All right. So at my 9, I had Dame.
All right.
Um, I I he had incredible. This is honestly probably his best year he's ever had. I mean, 32 points per game and still managed to get over 7 assists. I think you can argue that probably he maybe putting up some stats in garbage minutes or empty stats on a bad team. But there was a good portion of the year where Portland was still considered semi-competitive. It wasn't until probably the latter half of the season that things just fell apart. So anyone have any arguments for that?
I had him at 9 also. He did score 71 points this season.
Yeah.
Yeah, he cooked that game.
Yeah, I mean, I actually have him a little higher on my list, so
Oh wow.
I absolutely agree with you. He had a phenomenal year.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I'll go ahead and go into my number 9, who was also Damian Lillard.
All right.
So a lot of agreements there. But Damian Lillard was a top 75 NBA player of all time, according to whoever voted on that committee. And I mean, this was
Not
arguably
necessarily.
the best season of his career. So it's just a testament to how talented the NBA is that we only have him at 9.
He also had
Absolutely.
crazy, like pretty good shooting splits.
Yeah, career
Mhm.
high,
Ridiculous.
career high from the field and career high effective field goal percentage. Shot 37% from 3 on 11 attempts. That's a pretty darn good year.
He got hurt
Oh, yeah.
again. Like I can't even blame him. Like, and the team started to tank. Like a lot of things went wrong near the middle to end of the year.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. Well, then I guess I'll go to my number 8. This is a pretty obscure guy, actually. His name's LeBron James.
Who?
You all may not have heard of him. He's actually probably a little lower than some people might think on my list. But I also, there's there's just so many good
talent, yeah.
players in the NBA right now. And LeBron is getting a little old, and we saw some of that age to a degree this year in the playoffs. Only played 55 games in the regular season. So, the age is starting to catch up to him a little bit, but he's still easily a top 10 player, and I have him at 8.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna disagree and just take this out of left field. I have LeBron James also at 8.
Oh my God.
All right.
Yeah, I agree with his body. I think he's just starting to wear down a little bit. Skill wise, I think he could continue this. He's still one of the top players in the NBA, but his body just is
Absolutely.
preventing him.
Yeah. Because, I mean, he did average 8 boards and 7 assists this season and
Yeah.
shot 50% from the field as a 80-year-old man.
And
So,
he's hurt. He had to go
Yeah.
to the LeBron foot doctor.
yeah, right.
Just to play in the playoffs. All right. Well, I'll interject here because I also have LeBron at 8.
All right.
But I mean, yeah, just like things that you all have said. Obviously, counting stat wise, I mean, there's an argument for him to be even higher.
Yep.
Because, I mean, the defense really isn't there anymore. And he is definitely taking a lot of threes that he maybe shouldn't at this point in his career. But, I mean, the fact that he's, 56 years old and he's
Something around
still
there.
in our top 10, it's very impressive.
Jackson, do you also have LeBron James?
No, at number 8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have Shea Gilgeous-Alexander at number
Alright.
8. And it's kind of what you guys said before, but I kind of valued his defense, and I thought he had a pretty good play-in game, even though they lost. Like I know they got blown out by the Wolves, but he had 3 blocks and a steal, and still put up 22 on pretty good efficiency. And I just kind of, I don't know, I had LeBron a little higher.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. I can't see any reason to argue with that.
I'll go ahead and say Shea did not make my top 10, although he was very, very close. I'll tell you what, I was struggling with that 10 spot. It was between Jimmy Butler, AD, and Shea, and I went back and forth a million times. But like I said, just because of that finals run, I went with Jimmy.
They just willed that team
Mm.
to the play-in. I didn't think they would be anywhere near that. Like especially like without Chet, like I just felt like they
Yeah.
would be a pretty bad team.
One thing I also valued with Shea, just kind of piggybacking off Jackson here, is he also played 68 games this season,
Yeah.
which is the 3rd highest of anybody else on my list, my top 10. So I also valued that to a degree, just the availability.
I will say though, I mean, OKC didn't make the playoffs,
Right.
and if that was the big reason not to have Luca higher,
I also looked at win shares for these last 3, and his win shares was 12, Luca's was 10, and Dame's was higher than that also. That's kind of where I decided it. But none of them made the playoffs. I just kind of made it. I just didn't want to keep going back and forth between the 3, so I just made a decision. But I could see what you mean. Like to me, it's all
'Cause I think-
trivial. They all averaged over 30. They all were really good. I don't know.
Because I think what sets Luca apart is that not only did he average 30, but he also averaged all the boards and all the assists. And what he had that one game that was like a 60-20-10 game. I think that's what it ended up being.
Yeah.
And I mean, what, the Thunder won 2 more games than the Mavericks,
Yeah.
which I mean, the Mavericks should be winning a lot more games than the Thunder, but
Right. Alright, well, I guess I'll go ahead and move on to my number 7. So my number 7, this is where I have Dame. Obviously, a couple spots higher than you all, but you know, I just like, I mean, we kind of already fleshed out Dame, but I mean, my kind of validation for having him this high was, I mean, his career year and just a consideration of who he was playing with and him still being able
Oh,
to
you
get
you
over
don't
7
like Yusuf
assists.
Nurkic?
I mean,
defensive-minded center, Yusuf Nurkic.
yeah, yeah, right, yeah, future Phoenix Sun.
Like, horrible.
I pray
Yeah,
for
but
them.
so I don't know if you all have any comments about me having Dame that you know, a couple spots higher than you all, but I mean, my, you know, that 7 through 12, 15 is, I mean, we pretty much
Mhm.
all have similar players. It's just a matter of ordering them.
Mm-hmm.
I guess why'd you put him above the couple players that you did? I think you put him above what,
Right.
LeBron and I think Shea.
Yeah, I put him above LeBron from a statistical and games played point of view. Not that he played that many more games than LeBron, but he did play a few more.
And he also did
And
get shut down at the end of the season, so he would have played
yeah,
more if they
right.
weren't
That,
trying to get Scoot.
yep. And he had a career high. I mean, you think about the career of Damian Lillard, you think of one of the best point guards of the last decade or so, and he had a career high in effective field goal percentage and points per game. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, one of the best point guards having yet a career year, I just thought was a little higher to me than like Shea having his first ever really, really good season or LeBron slowly, you know, going downhill.
Mm-hmm. Isn't it crazy that
Uh,
LeBron going downhill is 29, 8, and 7
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
on efficient shooting?
That is the crazy thing.
all
All right,
right.
Tucker.
I have Kevin Durant at 7.
Okay.
We already went over him. He's just 50, 40, 90 club. Crazy
Yeah.
stats.
I think the only thing that we all disagree with Kevin Durant is how much to include his games played into
Yeah.
what, you know, factoring him. Because like I factored him in, I factored that in some to get me down to 10. Obviously, it wasn't as big of a deal to you to have him at 7. But like I said, I mean, I think if he would have played, uh, re you know, played 10 more games, he honestly was probably pushing top 5 for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When I tried to take into account a little bit, but just looking at the stats, like
Yeah,
when he played, he
ridiculous.
played.
Yeah.
Because I'll interject here again, but I also have him right there at 7. And
Peyton,
for
did you
me, it's
copy my
just
list?
no. But just like Tucker said, like when he played, he was arguably like maybe the best player in basketball because he shot like the best player in basketball. Like a 56 field goal percentage for Kevin Durant, who is not a center. Like that's just an insane field goal percentage.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree with you guys on that.
Yeah.
And also 5 assists for KD. That ain't bad. Then obviously, he's 7 foot,
mean,
so he should be getting boards, but
a block and a half too.
Yeah.
I mean, these are good stats. All right,
I can
Jackson, what do you
overlook
got?
games played a little bit when he plays this good.
I had LeBron. I mean, he's
Okay.
38 years
LeBron.
old. He's having 29, 8, and 7. He had a 30-point, 10 rebound, 6 assists, and 1 block and 2 steals in the play-in just to make
Yeah.
the playoffs. And then he went on a run, losing to the eventual champions. Like he had a crazy season for me for being
Yeah,
that
he
old.
did. He had a very, very good season for being, you know, in his what, 19th, 20th
20th.
year.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess I'll kick off number 6. I had Jason Tatum. I honestly wanted to put Jason Tatum higher than this.
Mm.
He had a career year, points, rebounds, assists, all career highs, effective field goal percentage, career high, all-star, all NBA first team, played 74 games, the most of anybody on my list. Just was very, very good this year and, you know, only getting better since he's still pretty young, but I put him at
19?
6. Yeah, right. He's only 19.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I can't really say anything because I also had him at 6. So
All right.
I had him a little higher actually.
yeah,
Jesus.
I have him higher. I
We'll
just
talk
think
about that later.
yeah,
because I mean,
but
I
I
have him at
guess
6 just because the players above him I think are just a little bit better.
Yep.
But that's no.
but think about the potential he has.
Right. Yeah, he's only 19 and
Yeah,
he's
only
putting up these
19.
stats, Peyton.
I know. Maybe next year I'll put him higher. But like 74 games played for a star player is ridiculous.
And
Like he really
averaging
doesn't
career
take
stats.
games off. Yeah, he averaged over 30 points, 9 rebounds, bunch of assists. In the playoffs, I think it was the closeout game against the Sixers when he had 50.
Yep.
Great defense. Like
Yeah.
honestly, it's a shame that the league is so stacked because he could be a top 3 player if there just weren't people better than him.
Yeah. I mean, he's easily going to be in MVP conversations for many years to come. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess
Right.
continuing on then, my sixth spot is Stephen Wardell Curry.
Okay.
He, he's greatest shooter of all time. This season, 29 points per game, 6 and 6 on rebounds and assists. I just felt like he had a great season this year. Best point guard in the league still. And that's why I had him this high on the list.
Yeah, I had him a little higher, but I didn't really know where to fit him in. Like I thought, for me, he was a top 5 player, but it's one off, so I can't really say anything.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I can't really disagree with you too much there.
I
Yeah.
mean, Steph Curry, and he had a Steph Curry year.
Yeah. What else do you say?
One of the greatest of all time.
All right, Jackson, who you got?
All right, this is where y'all are gonna get really disagreeing with me.
Oh
And
boy.
yeah, I had Devin Booker here.
Oh
Wow.
my God.
First, I want to say his playoff stats. He averaged 33.7 on 58, 50, 86. Crazy. Then he had 4.8 rebounds, 7.2 assists, and 1.7 steals, and they lost to the champions. Like he had a crazy playoff run, and he was clamping. And then in the regular season, he had 27.8 on 49, 35, 85. He averaged 4.5 rebounds and 5.5 assists on a good assist to turnover ratio. Like, I thought he had a really good year. Like, I didn't even have him on my top 10 in the first draft, but just taking everything to count, and he took 2 games off the champs. That's the most out of anyone in the NBA this year. So, I don't know. Y'all can say anything.
I can understand having him like in the top 10. He was in my honorable mentions. Because I agree with the regular season success, but I felt like some of the playoff success came from the fact that teams considered KD the first option and were covering him, which let Devin Booker basically just get open shots.
50% from 3 is crazy, though.
That is a lot.
Because his volume went up in the playoffs, actually, from the regular season. Because I looked at that, too.
Well, that's because he lost all of his role players. He had to
guess.
take more shots.
He was making them, though. It was a great season for him.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
he had a very good season. I can't argue with that. Like Tucker said, he's in my honorable mention, but I couldn't justify putting him this high over like LeBron and all those players, but kudos for you for being brave enough to do that, honestly.
I mean, you can't deny that he was an absolute monster in the playoffs. Like he was putting up video game numbers there,
Yes, he was.
but like really in the regular season, there were just a ton of players better than him. And even in the playoffs, you could argue there were a bunch of players better than him. But a big thing, like in the regular season, he only played 6 more games than Kevin Durant. And you guys had Kevin Durant like at the bottom of the list just because of
Right.
that.
This is
So, like,
where I
not
had him
only
at
did he not
11.
play a ton, but
Plus, I didn't like the having to deal with like both the Nets and Suns, everything, taking that into account. But KD was on my top 10 originally. I just had to weed someone out because the 3 people ahead of him I had averaging over 31 points per game. I felt like they needed to be included on the list. That's the only reason KD didn't make mine. And I just felt like Booker had such a crazy playoff series, and I know that he was the second option, but I don't know. Someone on the Suns had to make it for me.
because I mean, he did have a great playoff series, but I just think there are so many other players that you just have to put above him. But like Cody said, that's a very brave brave spot for him.
Each is their own.
All right, well, piggybacking off that, this next pick's not going to be as exciting. My number 5, Steph Curry, pretty much exactly what we talked about with Tucker. So
All right. I guess my number 5. Now, I don't know if this will be controversial or not amongst our group, but I have Embiid.
Mhm.
I
That's
know he
kinda
won
low.
MVP. I know he had MVP. I was gonna have him higher, but I just his style of play, I feel like, is hurting team success a little bit. The drawing the fouls, and I just felt like some of the other players that I have 1 through 4 provide more overall team success.
He averaged
Yeah.
33 points. That's crazy. Like he led the league in points, I'm pretty sure, or close to it.
And yeah,
I
he
think
did
he
lead
did.
them.
my sole argument for having him higher is that he is almost without a doubt the most unguardable player in the league, whether he's drawing fouls or not. Like Jackson said, he 33 points, career high, 4 assists, a career high, 55% from the field, a career high. He had a very good season. Personally, I have him a little higher because, he's doing stuff from a center we haven't seen since Shaq. But yeah, I mean,
I know it's
I'll
crazy,
play
but I
that
do
later.
see where Tucker's coming from when he says like he kind of negatively impacts winning, which is crazy to say because they were a top 3 seed and he was the MVP. But when I look at him, I kind of look at him like almost in the same vein as like Trae Young, where he just doesn't seem fun to play with. Like whenever he gets the ball's not going to move. It's going to stop and he's going to do whatever he wants to do. And
yeah.
it probably just like for the Sixers and all of Joel Embiid's teammates, even though he is fantastic at what he does, and I have him higher than what Tucker did, it cannot be fun watching him sit in the paint and draw fouls for the entire game.
I mean, that's fair.
I mean, yeah, I can
Terrible.
understand that. I mean, as you all know, as a Pacers fan, despise Joel Embiid with every living bone in my body. But yeah, he's been too good too consistently. I mean, when you have a player averaging those kind of numbers, I had to put him higher, but I understand where you're coming from. Trust me about the
Yeah,
fouls and everything.
I knew it'd be slightly controversial, especially with when I say my number 4, but we can move on to the next number 5.
I had Curry.
All right.
He just
Steph
had a
Curry
good
kind of
season.
speaks for himself, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he really does.
And he hurt himself after the year during that Pacers game. Remember, he tore that
Yep.
ligament in his hand. So,
Yeah.
All right. Well, at my number 5, this is where I put Luka.
Okay.
And I went back and forth on Luka and Tatum because I did end up having Luka 1 spot ahead. But I mean, like I said earlier, like Luka is another player who's just absolutely ridiculous. He puts up video game numbers. And I mean, we've read his averages a couple times, but 32 points, almost 9 rebounds, 8 assists. He had that one game that was absolutely ridiculous, 60, 20, and 10. And I mean, if you asked all the GMs in the league who they would want to rebuild around, he would be one of the top players that they would pick because he's also doing this at a very, very young age.
Yeah.
And obviously, like their team success stuff is there. Like obviously, Jackson, you had him at 10 just because his team didn't make the playoffs.
well, just the
But-
style of play. Like if you're gonna not bump Embiid, I can bump him because he's a very much ball dominant James Harden. Like he has a terrible team, but like he's controlling the offense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, I think there's a little bit of a difference between a guy like Joel Embiid because when you throw it to him, the ball's probably more than likely going up
Yeah,
or
like go
getting
ahead and get
fouled.
back on D.
I will say Joel Embiid did average a career high 4 assists. Kudos to him, but still, it's only 4 assists. You throw it to Jokic, he's averaging 10 assists. You throw it to Doncic, he's averaging 8 assists. Those kind of
Mhm.
things. Even Giannis is averaging 6 assists. So I think those players like Luka, he is the engine of that team. And unfortunately for him, he has Reggie Bullock and Tim Hardaway Jr. and Maxi Kleba, or as Quinn Buckner says, Maxi Kleber, running around the perimeter for him.
I mean, it's
Because
fair.
also with the Mavericks, like the offense really isn't the problem. The problem is the
Yeah,
defense.
right.
And you could argue that Luca plays into that a little bit, but obviously your Reggie Bullocks and Tim Hardaway Jr.'s are going to play into that more than he would.
Yeah, and they don't, I mean, Christian Wood is not a defensive center, so having him
Yeah.
there really hurt them. That's really where I mean, that's where they really hurt is the center spot for the Mavericks.
And
Don't
they
you
traded away their
worry.
best defensive player in Dorian Finney-Smith for Kyrie Irving, who's more offense and less defense.
I did not
So-
agree with that trade.
Yeah, that's the Mavericks have definitely done some things that probably make Luka Doncic stay up at night thinking about. But
Mhm.
piggybacking off of that, Luka's my number 4. So I
Mm.
don't really know that we need to beat that horse to death anymore
Yeah,
with him at
he's-
4. So,
He's also my number 4, so
and I guess just I put him above Curry and Tatum just solely because of the ridiculous stats he put up and games played, over Curry. I mean, he played 10 more games than Steph Curry. Not that that's necessarily Steph Curry's fault. He got injured, but it is something to consider.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right, Jackson, who you got it for?
So this might be a little more because I like him a lot, and I was just kind of disappointed this year, but I put Giannis here, and I had him
Okay.
3 originally, but he got hurt a few times, and his playoff run, even though like it was short, when he did play, he didn't play great, and I know he was hurt, but I don't like the end of the season, and he did average
Yeah.
a ton of points, and I
Eh.
had 3 average similar points and everything, so it was just kind of one of those like I just kind of made a last minute decision.
Yeah, and I think another thing with Giannis this past year is I don't feel like his defense was the
Up to
all
par.
NBA caliber
Nope.
defense that it's been
Mm.
historically. I think that's another thing to consider there. I just like Giannis had a really good year, career high in points. Had another really good year, obviously, and obviously playoff disappointment and a little bit of the injury bug hurt him. But I just, I feel like if you're Giannis, you're probably disappointed with last season, despite how successful it was.
He's gonna have a turnaround this year, though. He's coming. He's hungry.
He's a
I don't
baser.
really blame a lot of that postseason, like the Bucks losing on Giannis, because I mean,
No.
I
kinda,
don't
like,
either. It
broke
just was
his back
disappointing.
basically.
Yeah, and
I
my thing with Giannis is sometimes I think he gets frustrated when his team's struggling and tries to do it
Mhm.
all himself, and that's where he gets
Mhm.
into trouble, running into walls in the paint and turning it over and taking bad shots, and then he starts missing free throws and
Yeah.
like sometimes I think a lot of it with Giannis is just learning to be,
Trust
be
his teammates.
better. Like you don't have to take over and go crazy here. Let's get Chris Middleton to go and let's give Drew Holiday some shot. You know what I'm saying? And that's just, I don't have any stats backing that up, but I feel like a lot of the times when I see Giannis struggle, that's kind of the reason is just him forcing the issue too
And
much.
For me, it was less like dissing his playoff run, more like praising the other person's that I have above them.
Yeah. Right.
But like his playoff run didn't negatively affect how I saw him. It's just the other person got elevated because they played well in the playoffs. That's the only reason I put them above. But for me, like my 3 and 4 were like neck and neck.
All right,
Giannis
Peyton,
was
what you
also
got?
weird. I just have one last thing to say about Giannis. But
Okay, yeah,
this
go ahead.
season, he averaged, it's almost like the LeBron James thing, where he averaged 31, 12, and 6. And we're still kind of looking at it as somewhat of a disappointing season
Yeah.
for him.
Yeah.
It's crazy, isn't
Mhm.
it?
Because
He's
I
that
remember
good.
on fantasy basketball, I had him on my team. And at the beginning of the year, I was very dissatisfied with him because I don't know what the stats are, but I'm sure they back this up. But he really picked it up as the year went along. And even then, like, it's just crazy that this was a disappointing year for him. And like
Yep.
Jackson said, next year, obviously, he's probably going to ball out. But that being said, my number 4 is Joel Embiid. So we
Okay.
already went over Embiid a lot, but
Yep.
obviously he led the NBA in points. He is the defensive anchor for the Sixers. And even though he did flame out in the playoffs a little bit, just for that regular season, you have to give him a spot at least in the top 5.
Alright, well, my number 3 is Giannis, so we just, talked about him pretty extensively. But he still did average the career high in points and all, like you said, 31, 12, and 6 is, I felt was enough for definitely top 5, and I put him at 3, so.
I definitely think Giannis with his future running buddy of Buddy Hield will take off this year.
Yeah, he's gonna look
We can
good in
talk
that
about Buddy
Pacers
Hield later.
uniform.
You got Buddy Hield at 1, Jackson.
No, talk about the trade rumors later.
Okay, I guess at my number 3, I have Tatum. I do not like. I don't really like the Celtics. And I think that it will be crazy to
Bro.
watch Tatum become the second option this year behind Tingus Pingus. But
I had Tatum at 3 also, Tucker.
yeah, I felt like his defense and offensive game
Yeah,
combined just makes him a top 3 player for me. Putting
He
up
lost to the
30.
runner-ups in the playoffs. His
Yeah.
efficiency didn't really drop.
I
I
can
mean-
understand that. Like I said, I originally had him within my top 5, but then I started looking at like Luka and Steph, and I was like,
Mhm.
man, they were really, really good. I went back and forth a long time about between Jason Tatum and Steph Curry at 5 and 6, but I was like, I went with Steph just because, it's Steph Curry, but I can understand having Tatum that high.
It's those
Because he
74
did have a
games.
career year in 74 games. But I just, I think like Giannis and Luka were maybe just a little better this year, especially statistically.
I guess that's fair. I just the playing that many games and then being that consistent is what put me over the edge. And I think he was a really good defender this year, for the
Yeah.
most part. He didn't make an all defense team, but I don't think anyone on my list did. It was a weird year.
Yeah, no, nobody on my list made an all defensive team either. I thought that was weird.
Mhm.
My one thing with Jason Tatum is I wish he could get if he could get his efficiencies up
Yep.
a few
Yeah.
points, then I
'Cause
would
that's what
have
held
him
him back for
firmly
me.
within my top 3.
Because he shot 46% from the field and
Mhm.
35% from 3. And like obviously that's really good, but when you're comparing him to the best of the best,
Yeah.
like if it was just a little bit better, it'd be a lot easier to place him higher.
And I saw a statistic, I don't want to completely misquote it, so I won't try to remember it. But I believe on like pull-up threes, he was shooting in the 20%
Ugh,
range
Yep.
this
Oh,
past season. So like
I think that
he
was a career low for him because I
yeah,
saw
he
that too.
definitely has room for improvement in the efficiency category.
That's fair. He's only 19 though.
True, true.
we need to beat that joke to death.
Oh, it's
Oh,
already
we will.
it's already dead.
His birthday's next week though. He's gonna get the whole 2-0.
Dang. 1 year off from drinking.
All
All
right,
right.
Peyton.
So I think it's back on me.
Yeah.
Yep.
So my number 3, and this is probably going to be the most controversial thing that I have on the list so far, but this is where I put Steph Curry.
That's
Okay.
fair.
So obviously I put him above both Luka and Joel Embiid just because it was another Steph Curry season. Like what Steph Curry does, he didn't quite average 30 points in the regular season, but in the playoffs he did. And so 30 points, 6 and 6, shooting 42% from 3. Obviously he's Steph Curry, you expect this. But I think just the reason I put him over Joel Embiid and Luka was just his winningness. Obviously, Luka didn't make the playoffs. Joel Embiid kind of flamed out in the playoffs. In the playoffs is really where Steph Curry becomes Steph Curry. Because
Game
obviously,
7.
everything he does.
Yeah,
Head
I
cut
mean,
off,
Steph,
and eventually the ball will come back to him, a contested 50-footer.
right? Yeah, I mean, I, you know, I can 100% understand that reasoning there. Like you said, he's Steph Curry. That's how it is. At my number 2, this is where I had Joel Embiid, and my going, like I said, we've beat this Joel Embiid horse to death like 30 times now. like I said, I just like he's the most unguardable player in the league, and he's putting up like led the league in points. No, what the last center to do that was Shaq, and he's just statistically a beast and physically a beast. So as much as I hate him, I did have him at 2.
I had him at 2 also. Same kind of thing you said.
All right, Tucker, who you got?
Okay. Yeah, I had Giannis at 2. I can see the argument for Embiid. I know we already went over that. So, I I did kind of go back and forth if I wanted Giannis at 2. He's just been so consistently good that I felt like he deserved it.
And that's very fair.
I was just surprised Joel played 69 games. Isn't that like I don't know if it's a
Nice.
career high, but he never plays that many games.
He did
It's
play a
definitely
lot
a
of
nice amount of
games.
games for him.
The same as Jokic.
But going along with Tucker, I also had Giannis at 2, and I know you all had him a little bit lower, but I mean the Bucks were the 1 seed this year in a stacked Eastern Conference above both the Sixers and the Celtics. And
Yep.
I mean, a lot of that success does come down to Giannis because obviously Chris Middleton was hurt a lot this year, and Drew Holiday's not really an offensive oriented player. So a
Right.
lot of that offense really does fall to Giannis. And even if he wasn't quite the defensive beast this year as in the past, he's still Giannis Antetokounmpo. Like
Right.
no sane man is going to drive into the paint with him standing there.
No. And I did like Joel Embiid did average, Joel Embiid averaged a steal and 2 blocks a game. So like he did put up more stats in the defensive category than Giannis, but I honestly can see Giannis or Joel at 2 or 3. I mean those are fair assessments.
They both had very good seasons, obviously. They both, well, Joel Embiid won the MVP, and I believe Giannis finished third. So
Yeah.
All right, well, looking at where all these lists stand, it seems to me that we have a consensus number 1.
Tyrese Halliburton.
That's what I
Buddy
was going to
Hield.
say.
So I believe we all have reigning Finals MVP, NBA champion, 2-time MVP Nikola Jokic.
For me, it was all the playoff stats. He went
He was
crazy.
the last man standing.
Yeah,
He led the
he's-
playoffs in points, rebounds, assists, and win shares just by himself.
And almost was like 3 assists away from averaging a triple double in the regular season. Shot 63% from the field, an effective field goal percentage of 66%. Like,
he's
I
just
mean,
absurd.
yeah.
Because he doesn't only have the stats, he also just has the winning intangibles.
Yep.
Like he seems like he would be super fun to play with, unlike some other
Not to
players
eat.
that we've gone over.
That's just your wet dream, Peyton.
Oh, that'd be awesome. I'd probably average 10 if I was on the team with Jokic.
He almost averaged a triple double in the playoffs, also, Cody.
Yes, he did. And that's, we talked about, I had talked about Joel Embiid being one of the most unguardable players in the NBA, and Nikola Jokic is right there with him because, Nikola Jokic, even if he's not scoring, he's affecting games in other ways, whether that's rebounding, assisting, just ball movement, just he affects the game in so many facets that I don't see how you can put anybody else at 1.
And he can
He
jump
just has
high.
that Nuggets offense working like a well-oiled machine.
Yep.
I guess
Right.
I want to pose a quick question to anybody listening is an argument for why Jokic shouldn't be number 1.
Yeah, I would love to hear
Good
that
luck.
because I don't know that there
And
is
don't
one.
say defense because he is a
Yeah, but-
decent defender now.
Yeah,
He
he
averaged
averaged
Beat the
just
no
1.3
defense
steals.
allegations.
1.1 steals and a block, I'm pretty sure.
And if you want to say Giannis or Joel Embiid, you cannot be a Bucks or Sixers fan.
Or a Pacers fan. We got too many.
Yeah, we don't need any more.
All right, you don't want to go into your honorable mentions so we can kind of discuss where we left people
Yeah,
out.
so my honorable mentions, we had already kind of discussed a lot of them. Here is one dude I wanted to bring up that was in my honorable mentions that we didn't discuss, and he had a spectacular year, was Donovan Mitchell. I
He's
know
on
the
mine.
playoffs
Yep, he's on
Did-
mine.
didn't go as he would have hoped, but career high in points, career high in 3-point percentage and field goal percentage. My thing with Donovan Mitchell was always he was a bit of a shot chucker. But this year he shot almost 40% on almost 10 attempts a game. So, but yeah, mine was Donovan Mitchell, Anthony Davis, Kyrie Irving, another guy we haven't really talked about, but
Oh,
I
wow.
mean, what else do you need to
Mm.
say? He's Kyrie Irving,
Yeah,
and
I
then
thought
Jimmy
about him.
Butler, and then my final one was Devin Booker. So,
Mine is gonna be very. I've got some dudes who I wasn't sure about. It's from 11 to 15. It's Jimmy, and then Kawhi, Harden, Booker, Zion.
I
okay.
took
Zion.
Zion and Kawhi out very early because they barely played this year.
I did, yeah. My 11 through 15, I kind of just took the whole like games played out of it a little bit and just looked at skill wise. And Kawhi, his offensive game always impressed me this year. Like his defense is always there, but I was just shocked by how well he played on offense. And Zion, when he played, he was a force.
Yeah,
That's the
I
big thing
mean,
with Zion is when he played.
right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Kawhi
fair.
Leonard was like my just out of the honorable mention. So like I completely agree with that. Like I said, I pretty much just did it because of the games played, but he did have a very good offensive season this year when he
Yeah,
played.
good postseasons too when he played.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right.
Those
Mine
like 2
11 through
games were magic.
Yeah, yeah, the 2 games. My 11 through 15 went like this. I had KD, which he was in my top 10 for majority of the time I made this, and then I took him out at the last second. Then I had Butler, and then I had De'Aaron Fox because he had a crazy playoff run and a crazy regular season, and I just wanted to give him some love. Averaging 25, 4 and 6 with a 1.1 steals and 0.3 blocks, and then he went up to 27 on pretty good efficiencies in the playoffs. And then I had
Yeah.
AD, and then I had Donovan Mitchell.
Yep, good picks. I think De'Aaron has an argument for the top 15 just based off that Warriors series
Yeah.
Yeah,
because it was crazy watching him go back and forth with
it was
Steph.
awesome.
Yeah. Because I mean, basically
Tyrese fed up.
the other guys that I also considered for my top 15 but didn't make it were John Morant, Paul George, and Sabonis. Other than the other players we had talked about, just all those guys also had very, very good seasons. And just because of one thing or another, whether it be injury or
Alex Len being better
outside
than them in the playoffs.
Alex Lynn beating them in the playoffs or other outside activities, I left them off my top 15 list, but a lot of guys had very good seasons this year.
Bro, I had Jaylen Brown for a little bit, and I looked how bad he was in the playoffs, and I was like, nah, I'm good. I just took him out. Like he almost
Yeah.
averaged a 1 assist to turnover ratio. Like it was pretty bad.
Yeah, he had a
I'm
rough
interested to
postseason.
see how
It
he
was
plays this
1.03.
year.
He
Yeah.
should play better. I know he
I mean,
freaking cut his hand off, like
Right.
he cut with that vase.
yeah.
But I couldn't justify him in my top 15 after
Yeah,
looking at the
no, there's too
stats.
many other good players.
Well, my first 5 out, they're all players we've mentioned before, but AD, Shea, Devin Booker, Kawhi, and Donovan Mitchell. So I
Okay.
think all of these players have been brought up, so we don't really
Yeah.
need
Yeah.
to say more about them.
All right. Well, so let's get into the final segment of the podcast here. And what we're going to do today is kind of set up next week's podcast. So next week we're going to talk about rookies. We'll talk about last season's rookies and who played well and you know what we think about kind of a rookie review of last season's rookies. And then today we're going to go ahead and do a draft of upcoming rookies that were just selected in this year's draft. We're each going to select 3 rookies and we'll in the next week do a little bit of scouting and whatever to prep for next week and come back and kind of give our expectations and what we're excited about, what we're worried about for each of these rookies. So, Peyton, I believe you're going to randomize the order.
All right. So, Jackson, you have the first pick.
All
Oh,
right.
boy.
I didn't think I'd get the first pick. Well, I'll just do a homer pick and I'll do Jarris Walker because I wanted to look into more of his game.
Good pick.
All right. I'll go ahead and just say the order for everyone. And I guess we're doing a snake draft.
Sure.
All right. So Jackson had the first pick. I have the second pick. Tucker has the third, and Cody has the fourth. So Cody will get back-to-back picks.
Sounds good.
But for number two, I'm just gonna go ahead and take Victor Wembanyama.
Good pick.
Understandable.
Surprised he fell to me, honestly.
I just wanted to look at like I know he's gonna be good. I'm trying to look at some of the players that might be good to like project, you know?
Gotcha.
Fair.
All right, so Tucker, you're on the clock.
I'm gonna do the same thing as Jackson. Take Scoot.
Hmm.
The homer pick.
I almost said Bilal
Fair.
Coulibaly.
He's
Pacers
on my
legend.
radar. Not gonna lie.
Didn't want to look at him.
I'm gonna take Grady Dick, just a fun player.
Mr. Dick.
He could be a Portland Trailblazer. Who knows?
I like the Dick pick.
Yeah.
All right,
His suit was
and
not it though.
with my next pick right there, I'm going to take Kobe Buffkin.
Mm.
Oh,
Just
cool.
a Big Ten guy. I've obviously watched a lot of Big Ten basketball of late, so dig into him a little bit and figure out what he's about.
I
Alright,
guess
Cody
that means
again.
Yeah, it's
That
Tucker's
was his
turn.
second.
No.
So now Tucker's on the clock.
Oh yeah.
okay. I'm gonna take Derek Lively because I'm interested to see how much he's gonna play with the Mavericks and how much of an impact he can have.
All right, I believe now it's on me, and
Yep.
I'm going to
Yeah.
go ahead and take Cam Whitmore, just because
That's a good
I'm
one.
interested to look at why he fell and see if maybe there's something there.
All right, so for mine, this is someone thought would have been really interesting if the Pacers would have drafted, and he wasn't even there. But I want to look at Anthony Black.
Mm. Good pick.
I get two, right?
Yep.
Uh-huh.
And then I'll go lower in the draft. I want to look at Jaime Jaquez.
Okay. All
He
right.
might be
Future
a
Blazers
Dame's
legend.
replacement.
Hey, apparently they've completely cut the heat out, so
Oh, that's like a toxic ass X.
All
all right,
right,
Peyton.
so I'm on the clock. I'm surprised nobody's taken a Thompson twin.
I was going to, but I
So,
got like a few top picks already. So
Gotcha. So yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and take Asar Thompson, Jaden Ivey's future running mate.
I like Asar.
Yeah, SR looks good. I think I'm gonna take Amani Bates, get a second rounder,
Ooh.
and he's tall. Maybe he gets some minutes at small forward this year.
That's a good pick, Tucker. I considered him. I'm between a few guys here for my last pick. That I think would be kind of interesting to dig into. But I don't want to watch Jalen Hood-Schifino put another 40 points on Purdue, so I'm gonna take Amin Thompson.
Ah,
All
good pick.
right.
That's interesting. I thought about what was his name? Leonard Miller. He
So
seems
yeah, I
cool.
mean, Brandon Miller is a big omission from
Mm-hmm.
anybody. Bilal
The third overall
Coulibaly's
pick.
Taylor
Mhm.
another high
Hendricks.
pick. Taylor Hendricks, Cason Wallace, Jed
I was actually
Howard.
looking at Derek Lively the second, but I ended up going with the Thompson twin just because the
Tucker
Mavericks
took
seem to
Derek
really,
I
really like
already
him.
took Derek.
Oh, okay. It's a good thing I didn't pick him then.
Yeah, Chris Murray could be interesting.
Egan better.
Like I said, I thought about
Yeah.
Jalen Hood-Schifino,
I did too,
but
but
I
Indiana.
just can't watch more of that film. I gouge my
You're
eyes
not
out.
gonna put yourself through it.
Or like Jalen Pickett, come on, I haven't
What about
watched too
Noah
much of them.
Clowney?
I'm already watching Kobe Buffkin, looking at Kobe Buffkin, so. All right, well, I think this was a pretty successful pod for our first ever pod. There weren't too many lumpies and bumpies around here to throw us
Bumpies and
off.
bumpies.
You have to vote who the biggest casual is.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
so we are a casual NBA podcast. So we're gonna have polls up on all of our social medias where you guys get to vote who you think the biggest casual is just for this episode. So I guess we'll post everyone's top tens and we'll let you all decide. All right. Well,
Alright.
thank you all for watching, listening, however you're consuming this podcast. We really appreciate it. If you're watching on YouTube, please leave a like, subscribe, drop a comment. And if you're listening to it on anyone or anything else, please rate it 5 stars and just do what you can to help us out. So
Yep,
thank
see
you
you
all so
next
much, and we'll see
Tuesday.
you next time.
Bye bye.
Adios.